Julie here with Sirius Taurus Moon. This is Mercury, 10 degrees Gemini. Mercury Aldebaran. Moon, Middle Leo. Venus applying to square Neptune on the minute. Now, there is a certain threshold cross, and it can be both the Mercury Aldebaran, Sun Uranus, which is a synodic cycle, and Venus in the opening square with Neptune. I've been listening to the Orgasmic Birthing podcast. I'm so missing episodes that connect, like, orgasmic birthing. What do orgasmic birthing podcast have to say about, let's say, the Epstein series? Because there's something that I'm really missing. This is what I've been watching with Neptune. We're tending to the missing. Or we find that which is missing is actually present. Now, so I also want to address how should I say that? When it was right before the Me Too, I had a friend that was doing apprenticeship being a relationship coach, and that meant all the manifesting, and she from her I heard about Abraham Hicks, and aside to that, she was a documentary film creator that was documenting evidence for previous cases of something that could be considered genocide in the history of Israel. And she had to bridge these two worlds where the relational teachings are of what couples come to create together, and kind of like the benevolent believing and being, even kind of like, are you the lone wolf or the lovey-doves or whatnot? And all of those things, and I was like a friendly gesture. I was like, okay, let's be the first the first client. And then the first client was basically somebody that only now I understand was targeted by something like the Epstein dossiers all their lives. So think about the fact that most of the things happen in occult phases, and one of the communication models was to imagine that there is a camera in the room seeing the situation. What would the camera see? And I'm like, these models are so not compatible with what we're dealing with. So, but the inner issue was, how does one bridge between, let's say, manifesting or and documenting the actual reality? And by the way, there were right-wing Israeli people that wanted her movie to come out because they say if they know it's 400, not 40,000, then at least then at least they had, like, it's kind of like the truth is out, so at least they have, but the actual appraisal and so on and so forth. That was way before 7th October. Now, if I talk about, dropping the petering while taking from the model of orgasmic birthing, and these worlds were like, okay, that was a breeding farm, that is actually the actual antidote, the orgasmic birthing, and the many things. Okay, we talk about femicide. I was just thinking about the time where, when I was basically escaping violence in Netherlands, the person that was sharing my Facebook posts back then when I had Facebook was my father. Now, the divorce, what kind of risk? And then since then, there was like 3 years of femicide. And then the person that I listened to when I was trying to learn Dutch was the number one true crime. I don't wait. While they were trying to attempt to assassinate, back then I don't know if it was already caretaker prime minister wrote it. There's now to Secretary General, but and I was trying to do channeling experiment, and they had all these weird hand gestures, and I'm like, and I understand that's how they get the people to do these weird hand gestures. And so then Uranus was 22, and when I came back, opposing my Mars on my lot of spirit, and I made water expands upon cooling, and I'm like expecting my father to be proud of me. Now, this, we haven't even scratched the tip of the iceberg of the sets of juxtapositions, horrifyingly, but funny, but horrifyingly funny things. And this, these worlds, this is something where, the awareness, um, because when we build something new, taking picking the testimonies of ritual abuse survivors, then it's like, oh, it's Epstein survivors, or Michelle Nihul dossiers, um, reverence to Annika Lucas for 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 renaming that. And that's not a direct from here. Without Annika Lucas, I wouldn't know about Michelle Nihul being basically kind of like the reason that Mark the True did not manage to escape violence and became Mark the True, perhaps. And then the connecting of the dots where bits and pieces, and then like, wait a second, I'm listening to Alondra. I'm like, Alondra Epstein. One got the chance to run away, one didn't get the chance to run away. I'm like, okay, but what? Oh, wait a second, with the astrology, a favorable Neptune aspect can be contributed. If people work with charts that have Neptune in favorable aspect, maybe they can assist. And this comprising, and then there is the thinking of the people that grew into horrible things that they had to do to their loved ones. and, and the children. And that it was because they were tortured. So, and all of these things, and then the people that creating a safe environment for orgasmic birth. And now, with tending to one brings the other. What do I mean by that? When we tend to, okay, the portal of orgasmic birthing, that is a transition from the astral, from the soul incarnation to the body, through, with both being agentive, but hey, that's also an infant, is not an agent here yet. It's kind of like it is and it isn't, but it's not an agent as per soul trait, let's say. And and when that infant is tortured since infanthood, it basically never gets to become an agent. Now, that is when we understand that, okay, why like the liminal space that allows for orgasmic birthing also allows for transitions in life, which is like 8 house, which is kind of like going through transition in life as orgasmic birthing rather than trauma. It's embodiment and attunement. Recovery from trauma is embodiment and attunement. Embodiment and attunement is also a process of recovery from trauma, being grounded in pleasure. And then it brings up all those things. Yet to create a space for the orgasmic birthing lineage continuation is literally, we think about the people coming out of the cave. I was like, no, that's fucking literal. It's not a metaphor. It actually contributes to people coming out of the cave because they will have a place to heal from their traumas. And what looks like utopic as orgasmic birthing completely shifting is only the cornerstone, is but the cornerstone for the actual possible trajectory of the people coming out of the cave. Now, the various, if we think about the, people having orgasmic birthing, and some of these people or couples had hospital birth or traumas of birth, and then with the next birth was orgasmic birth. That's a world change. And if we think about the classified project budget being around breeding farms, we understand that those changes are absolutely possible. Now, and it's bridging between where the world looks in a very particular way to orgasmic birthing. Now, this is just, you know, sharing, I guess with and with Venus in the opening square to Neptune, um, and any square is a crisis of growth. It's crisis of growth from something that seems utopian and a fantasy, incarnating into something as actual reality. It's also a crisis of growth where something seemed dystopic, and now we're actually looking at something being a reality. At the many internal fears that were correlating with things that actually happen in the world, and then the transmuting of those that leads to actual babies being born to not breeding farms in the world, which from, let's say, what Alandra escaped from looks like the big light outside of the outside of the cave in a very literal way. And it is the spaces for orgasmic birthing that are the spaces where the people come back. Then they can actually transmute, transform, and heal. Now, is it overwhelming? Absolutely. 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 But also the reason births weren't orgasmic have to do with these breeding forms. So we are already transmuting that, is what I'm saying. For me, this is this Venus square Neptune. It's like, oh, it's already happening. This world that looks like utopia is already happening. It's already real. It's not just that those horror things are real, but the fact that we are transmuting them, that babies are being born, finding their own home, attuning the person, the couples are orgasmically birthing together, like that. It's not like, oh, that exists and that. No, 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 no. We become aware that, oh, that, oh, wait a second, that's, hey, those people that do that, they're antidoting the breeding farms. They're not dealing with a demographic threat. Wait a second, they already escaped the claws of the medical system, not into the gruesome, horrifying nature, but also not into settings that was not, let's say if it's a person that didn't have, that were living in a van or something like that, not even to the doula, but to a home. Oh, but the breeding farms, they were trying to loot people from having a home. Boom, orgasmic birthing into a home. I will show you, shout out to orgasmic birthing, orgasmic birth. And I love that she says orgasmic birth, sacred birth, home birth, easy birth. No, 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 no. All of those are still cult-like. It's not transmuting pain to power. No, no, none of that. And those, and this is where those stories come from. And and of course it would be a BIPOC woman telling that story. That you know that you know, if I think about, you know, during slavery, black women, they were the doulas. They were the doulas, but they didn't birth children of their own in many cases because they were slaves. They couldn't grow children of their own sometimes, or most times even. And then it created a situation that white women had horrible births. Um, so this is, wait a second. The episode is Orgasmic Birth. Have a birth that transforms you. The Ellen Fisher podcast. So this is complete transformation. Now, it's not like, oh, the moral of the story, oh, have children. No, it's something. It's the attunement and recovery that brings about these things. Now, is it not overwhelming? Yes, it is. And the people, now, of course, it stirs up for all the people that have the behaviors that came from those breeding farms. Within all of us, whether it's the fears, the children that nobody came to save campaign. Now, these juxtapositions, first of all, they're overwhelming because if I think about, let's say, there was a time where people were talking about narcissistic abuse and they were talking about dating. And they said, listen how a person talks about their exes. Now, there's a difference because one would say, oh, all their exes were crazy. Okay, it may be true. Another would say, yeah, I see where are places where those things I still needed to heal, or those things I still needed to recover from. I also see, back then they couldn't say that, I also see how the world was changing. Those are the things that still need to change for me to, let's say, be parent or be partner. Okay, different tonalities. Now, one was now, if a person say, "Hey, all my exes were crazy," of course, if they were targeted by Epstein dossiers, they're probably not lying. Okay, are they ready for a happy relationship? Probably not. Are they to blame? No. But the other person, the side effect is a chain of 9/11s of smear campaigns collapsing. Now, it wasn't necessarily the goal because, let's say, the goal was like, oh, embody life changes as orgasmic birthing practice. And it was like, oh, wait a second. When I was practicing something close to that, those things happen. So okay, let's talk with all these women to talk about orgasmic birthing. What about the creation of spaces because women could be dealing with that and then noticing, oh, when am I getting angry? Wait a second, I'm getting angry. There's a boundary here. Okay, it means that something is missing. It means that we need to invent it. We need to invent a space where a woman is safe and free to give orgasmic birthing, even as life change. Not necessarily orgasmic birthing to a child, but the process of orgasmic birthing. It's like, oh, what is missing? Oh, supportive partner. Oh, wait a second, let's take a look at the orgasmic birthing couple. Why there's so few stories? Why there's so few stories like that? Anyway, let's listen to what is there. Now everybody big mad. It's like, wait a second, of course, all of these things that you complained about, from them, the 1% that was true was because of those origin birth wounds that I'm now tending to. And every time that I tried to tend to, there was targeting that came from eventually the policies of the breeding farms. So abolish the breeding farms. If a person will say, oh, it's impossible to have a conversation with you because you can broadcast for hours, but if somebody even tries to speak with you, immediately get shut down, cut off, or whatnot. They're not lying. I don't know if they're trying to speak with me or they're participating in some dark occult practice. Now, to know that, I need to curate things within me. To practice that as orgasmic birthing process, I need to have the space that is possible. It's not possible to work because every single thing will remind me of, but particularly when I tended to drop in the petering. And this is what I mean about the bridging between worlds, because think about, I tended to the topic of true crime. Think about the person that tends to these things. Watch Annika Lucas. Just pick an episode and begin to watch Annika Lucas. Understand what I was immersed with for several years. And that It's not just a power dynamic. It's a way of, thanks Anya Week and thanks to people um, that approached and said that that's how people used to grow their children. And then as information begins to leak, people do the weird hand gestures and they leak informations. So just like a person is tending to true crime and see how the perpetrators think, then you know from there having day-to-day interactions, whether it's growing a family or whatnot, is beyond overwhelming. And the fact that also the true crime industry and so on, I know. Because the infiltration was on every single sector that would be at the juncture of the exit in violence, then we see that in every single juncture. And this is where, I'm the first astrologer that I know that called to declassify MK often, and MK often was indeed declassified. Now we see discussions about the AI as a form of modern MK Ultra. So it steers a lot of, if I think also from my, now, but the people that tend to these things, of course, they deal with so much that discerning who isn't on that thread of is is particularly when we're crossing threshold because suddenly we're talking about orgasmic birthing. Wait a second, is that the birthing agenda? No. It's not a breeding farm? No. Is that another one of these cults that try to have home births and then traffic the children? No. So what is it? Is this BIPOC woman having not a hospital birth, not as an assisted doula in a van birth, but a home birth, orgasmic? Shifting the timeline. Way better than black x white. Mm-hmm.
זה היה כזה ככה גבוה וזה...
Yeah, thank you. So,
באמת צריך שזה יתקרר, אבל אצלנו יתקרר כבר בבטן,
אחר כך כן, תכף אני אחכה קצת שיתקרר.
אה?
תכף אני אחכה קצת שיתקרר.